Hello all and welcome back to another Promises Kept Bible teaching. This is our Bible study in which we're taking a look at the promises of God in our Bibles. Not all of them, but a big chunk of them, 150. And today we are on Promise Kept number 32. And this one is in a book of the Bible which we have not looked at yet in this study. And that book is named 2nd Chronicles. And the name kind of gives away what it's all about. It's chronicling the history, the lineage, the kings of Israel. So way back when Israel had its first king was King Saul, there was a united kingdom of Israel. And after King Saul came King David, and King David, many people know him when we've talked about him, he wrote the Psalms. He made the United Kingdom of Israel quite strong. He was a warrior, and so he took a lot of territory. And after King David, there was his son, King Solomon, who again expanded the kingdom, the nation of Israel. And he started out strong, King Solomon, but towards the end, he wound up going against the commandments of God. Namely, he started to marry women, and that's plural, tons and tons and tons of women from different foreign nations, and he started to worship their foreign gods. And of course, that is breaking commandment number one. There should be only one God, and you should only worship him. So God says to Solomon that after your nation, after you die, the nation of Israel is going to be split in two. And that's exactly what happens. The nation of Israel splits in two. There becomes a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom of Israel. And in your Bible, you'll see these two kingdoms referred to as different names, but generally the northern kingdom remained the kingdom of Israel in name, and the southern kingdom continued on as the kingdom of Judah. And so these chronicles, the books of Chronicles, they are chronicling the kings that fall in line in succession after King Solomon. And there's another book in the Bible, the two books of Kings, that kind of do the same thing, 1st Kings and 2nd Kings. And then you have 1st Chronicles and 2nd Chronicles that are reiterating a lot of what are in the Kings, but they focus more, the books of Chronicles, on the nation of Judah. So all that to say, today we're in 2nd Chronicles, and we're going to see a verse, a promise verse, which is written to Israel. And we've seen this, we saw this yesterday, that there are promises that are in the Old Testament that are written, given to Israel. And some of them are beautiful, and we take them on as Christ followers and just hold on to them, knowing that at the heart of the verse, the promise verse, is God's heart, and his heart remains the same. I mean, he's never changing. So we can take these verses and apply them to ourselves. But again, we want to take them in context. And our verse today is the same. We're going to be in 2nd Chronicles 30, and our verse is verse number 9. So I'm going to read it, and you'll see why. It's a beautiful verse that as a Christ follower, you kind of want to grab onto. So it says in 2nd Chronicles 39, "For if you return to the Lord, your brothers and your children will find compassion with their captors and return to this land. For the Lord your God is gracious and merciful and will not turn away his face from you if you return to him." So there's the promise that he's graceful, he's gracious and merciful, and he'll not turn his face away from you if you return to him. Now, in context, this is written in the time of a king named King Hezekiah, who happens to be one of the good kings of Judah. You'll see good and bad as the Chronicles are unfolding. You'll see some are just awful and wicked, and some are pretty good. And Hezekiah happens to be a good king. During his reign, some of the people of Judah have already been taken into captivity. The captivity of the nation, the southern kingdom, happens in waves. And so during King Hezekiah's reign, we see some of the captivity of the nation, people of of Judah being taken away. And so that's what it's talking about in the beginning there. "For if you return to the Lord, your brothers and your children will find compassion with their captors and return to this land." So it's a blessing. It's saying, if you do this good thing and return to the Lord, then perhaps your brothers and your children that are in captivity will do the same. They'll come back. They'll come back to the Lord and come back to Israel. But the thrust of this is really talking about, for the Lord your God is gracious and merciful and will not turn away his face from you if you return to him. And the context of all that is really everything that happened to Israel, them being taken away into captivity. First, the northern kingdom was taken away in 722 BC. They were taken away by the Assyrians. And then the southern kingdom of Judah was taken away in 586 BC by Babylon. All of that is because of the nation of Israel, both halves of it, not obeying the Lord. Just really generally wicked and just not following the commandments that they had promised to follow. And in the commandments, specifically in Deuteronomy 28 and 30, it's very clearly laid out that if they do what they say they're going to do and follow the covenant of Moses, the Mosaic covenant, the 10 commandments, and all the other ones that kind of surround it, if they do it, they're going to be blessed in the promised land. And if they don't, they're going to be cursed, including being kicked out of the promised land. And that is exactly what has happened. And so you see the heart of that verse is just saying that the Lord is gracious and merciful and will not turn his face away from you, Israel, Judah, if you return to him. And it's just an amazing thing if you go into the Old Testament and read through Judges and First and Second Kings and Chronicles, First and Second. You come out of it and you're just like, what is wrong with these people, the Israelites? Why don't they just follow? And on top of it, then you say, and why in the world does God keep allowing them back and allowing them back in his good graces? And this verse tells you why. It's a promise of God that he's merciful and he's gracious. And if you turn your face to him, he's going to accept you back. It's just a promise of God. He will not turn away his face from you if you return to him. And as a Christ follower, maybe one that's kind of gone prodigal, which means kind of slipped out of your fellowship with the Lord, you can hold on to that. If you just turn back towards him, return to him, he's not going to turn his face from you. It really doesn't matter how far away you've strayed. It's a beautiful promise of God, and we see it in the New Testament. Many people know the story of the prodigal son. I won't go in there and read it, but it's a story which shows the picture of God's heart, of his mercy and his grace. And it tells the story of a father whose youngest son, says, I'm done with you, Dad. Give me my inheritance. And he runs off with all the money, and he goes and he squanders it on nothing but bad, prostitutes and gambling and all that kind of stuff. And he winds up destitute, basically, in a pig trough. And it occurs to him, what am I doing here? My father's servants in his house are doing better than I am here out on my own in this pig trough. So he decides in his mind, he comes up with a speech, and he's going to go back to his father, and he's going to beg for mercy. Well, the story goes that the father sees the prodigal son from a distance coming, and the father hikes up his robes and runs to his wayward son. He puts his best robe on him and puts his signet ring on him and says, let's have a party. So it's another story that gives this same truth about God, that it doesn't matter, how far you've run. If you return to him, God is not going to turn away from you. And so I really do hope that if you're somebody who's done this, maybe you started out strong with the Lord, but, the world and sin and temptation and things like that got a hold of you, well, it's okay. It doesn't matter what you've done, not at all. Just turn back to the Lord, and his promise is he will not turn away from you. He won't turn his face from you. He'll run to you, in fact. So do that today. Run back to God, and he will welcome you with open arms back to the family of God, where you're loved beyond measure. Okay? So come on back, and I will see you next time. See you tomorrow for the next promise of God. Bye.